I attended Alex Hormozi Scaling Workshop in Las Vegas a couple of weeks ago, and in this video, I want to break down my main takeaways and the pros and cons if you're considering going as well. And big caveat here, this will be a personal video because I'm going to talk about how the workshop applies to our business, the Alpha Lead Academy. We help consultants and agency owners build scalable client acquisition systems, and we're currently at 600K a year in revenue. So this advice, the pros and cons, and my takeaways will be contextual to this scenario. Let me start by giving you the basics. The workshop is 5K excluding travel. It's 2 days and it's pretty full on. You get access to Alex's team who manages portfolio companies, and they tell you what they believe is the biggest bottleneck that your business is facing. And given that the acquisition.com portfolio of companies has a combined revenue of 250 million, and the fact that Alex has sold his own business, Gym Launch, for 46 million, they have quite a bit of credibility in this area. If you want to skip ahead and go to the takeaways of the pros and cons, you can do so. The video has chapters, but first I want to cover the structure of the event because it's quite unique. This is now my second sort of mastermind, and after a pretty mediocre experience at Mastermind 1, which didn't have any structure at all, I really like the extremely tight and well thought out agenda at this scaling workshop. The whole event is built around what they call the value acceleration method, which itself is based on two main frameworks. Framework number one is the theory of constraints. Every business is like a series of pipes where water flows through. And the volume of water flowing through is dictated by the narrowest of pipes. If 9 out of 10 pipes are a meter across and one pipe is 1 inch across, of course, the whole flow of water will be constricted by that 1-inch pipe. So the main job of a business owner, investor, and CEO is to identify the biggest constraints, i.e. the narrowest pipe, and to systematically remove one after another so that more water or money can flow through. Framework number two is how they value a company. No matter if you want to sell your business or not, it is imperative that you build it in a way so that it can be sold, because a good business to sell is also a good business to run. And if somebody wants to pay you a lot of money to buy your thing, it probably means that you have something valuable. And the way to build a valuable business is to first focus on growth and add value accelerants such as recurring revenue and high profit margins. And then once you're at 5 million in EBITDA or profit, then you remove value detractors such as overdependence on you, the CEO, overdependence on one client or one specific client acquisition method. So be very profitable, pile on good stuff, remove bad stuff. This is how you build a good company. So these two frameworks, the theory of constraints and the valuation method, fit really nicely together. Now, I went there mostly to get confirmation from them on what is my growth thesis for the Alpha Lead Academy for us to reach 7 figures. Because it's really important that you remove the constraints in the right order. And even if, like me, you have been listening to Alex Hormozi's YouTube videos for quite a while now, there's always a couple of questions that remain unanswered. And that's why I went. So let's go into my main takeaways. So number one, do more of what works and do it better. We've recently hit a bit of a revenue plateau. Q1 2025 was quite good. Q2 was a bit flat. And when one guy from Alex's team asked me what has changed between the quarters, I said that in Q1 we were doing personalized outreach, which stopped in Q2 because I wanted to find something that was more scalable. And when I said that, they just pounced on me. Go back to doing that and figure out how to do it more efficiently. It was just a 3-minute conversation, but it made a huge impression on me. Do what works, do far more of it, stack hash, and only then add leverage like content and personal brand. Effectively, they told me, don't bother with a personal brand until you're at 7 figures. Number two, if you're below 3 million in revenue, you are in what they call the swamp. The swamp is the place where you cannot yet afford to pay world-class executives to run all 3 significant business functions: marketing, sales, and delivery, on their own, right? Without much of your input. So if you are below 3 million in yearly revenue, you just have to get past this point through sheer brute force and doubling down on what works, and don't get too fancy, right? Which brings me to the next point. You can get to 1 million revenue through one channel and one offer. No need to diversify acquisition channels or offers. Now, I have come across that number 1 million in both Alex Hormozi's and Cole Gordon's content, and that has been my North Star so far. However, what I learned at the workshop was that I had misunderstood it. It's not 1 million per year in revenue. It's actually 1 million per month. At least that's what the acquisition.com team says. The guys on Alex's team said that I should get to $1 million in monthly revenue just through cold outreach. And when I skeptically asked if that's even possible, they just smiled knowingly and said, of course. And when you think about it, I mean, why shouldn't it be possible? Let's take a quick look at our numbers. Our market is about 500,000 companies in the world, consultancies and marketing agencies. Our average revenue per client is, let's say, 15K. So to reach 1 million in monthly revenue, I need 66 clients per month. To get one client, we need to send about 300 personalized messages or 5,000 non-personalized messages. And let's assume that we can only hit the entire market once per quarter and always do a slight variation of the messaging. It's not imperative. There's no reason why we couldn't send an email once a month, but let's assume. Well, all we need to do then is to send 7,500 non-personalized messages every day and 450 personalized ones. That will give us about 3 clients per weekday, which gets us to 66 clients a month. Mathematically, it's possible. So now it just becomes an operational problem. As one of Alex's team members said, violence is the answer, which apparently is a motto that they have hanging on the walls at their offices. And violence, of course, means high volume of reps doing something that has proved to work in the past. Which brings me to the next takeaway 4, test more. As a rule of thumb, the acquisition.com team recommends for every 10K in ad spend to launch 10 new ad creatives each week. Now, we don't run ads, so we need to translate this into cold email terminology. If we assume around $200 of required spend to book a sales meeting, which is relatively normal, middle of the road kind of scenario in my world, that's about 50 sales meetings per month, which we can do with a combo of 1,000 scaled outreaches per day and 50 personalized outreaches per day. And we are really far from launching 10 new variations per week, which tells me we need to do more in this area. So test more. And then number 5, more, better, different. We are now doing more. So we have quite a high volume now that we're sending, and we need to become better with the better. Right? If I had to map out the close to perfect cold outreach lead generation machine, it would be this. Consider the volume of work we are able to handle at the current setup, even assuming some modest growth in our delivery capacity that wouldn't require a wholesale company shakeup, right? I think that could be roughly $200,000 a month. That's where we would get probably into operational trouble. And we're currently at about 50K. If we onboarded 5 new clients every week, worth about 10K each, we would hit a capacity constraint at that point. From that delivery capacity ceiling, we would reverse engineer the perfect outreach infrastructure where we are assuming the lowest ever seen call booking and call conversion rates, and will do enough outreach to achieve those 200K a month. And when I say infrastructure, it has to include everything from lead scraping to quality filtering, testing 5 to 10 new angles each week, calling leads as soon as they respond positively, sequencing VSL emails to them, sending call reminders, follow-ups, nurturing emails to the undecided ones, and so on and so on. And that way we will nudge those call bookings and conversion numbers upward. And when I looked at this mapped out system that I only high level summarized here, and I compare it to the current setup we have, there's a lot of missing elements. Right? And that's what we'll be fixing next. Build the near perfect outreach system. And this ties into an important foundational philosophical component. Do one thing very well before you move to the next thing. It is absolutely possible to reach 7 figures with outreach alone. And the acquisition.com team believe that it's even possible to reach 8 figures with outreach alone. Now, I have a hard time believing that, but hey, I'm sure that we could reach 3 million, 5 million with it. So before I move into ads, we will make sure that we dial in our outreach extremely well. Now, the next one was interesting. They say don't lead with ROI guarantees. And it's an interesting one because I didn't manage to take notes on it. And I will cover this topic in the downsides. There was just too much info to absorb, and we were not allowed to record or take pictures of the slides, even for our own use. But I'll talk about that later. But if you think about it from first principles, leading with a money-back guarantee is likely to activate a certain type of customer, the skeptical, arms crossed, looking for proof type of customer. And it's not going to be the high-end customer for whom their time is worth more than the money they invest, right? So a money-back guarantee will not necessarily attract the highest value customer. So I don't yet fully know what to do with this info and how it will change our messaging, because we do lead with an ROI promise. But we will definitely at least focus more on messaging that sells other aspects of our service and de-emphasize the money-back guarantee that we offer. Now, number 7, stop not only solving problems that are not immediately in front of you, but also stop thinking about them. One of my personal weaknesses is that I do too much thinking and ruminating, and I don't take enough action. One of my favorite things to think about is long-term strategy. I love strategizing, right? For example, in the past few weeks and months, I've been pondering the topic of sellability of the Alpha Lead Academy. Not that I want to sell it, but I want the business to be sellable. Well, At the workshop, I got the message reinforced over and over. You cannot sell a business properly at a good valuation anyway, ever before you're at 5 million in EBITDA, i.e. profit, not revenue. We're at 600K in revenue right now. So this is clearly not a topic for at least the next 2 years. Example of this, the acquisition.com team brought up the topic of key man risk. This is the risk that you face when the business is overly dependent on you, the founder. Always ask yourself, if somebody else bought the business or if somebody else were to lead it, would the business go down in the next 12 months or would it go up? If it would go down, then there is significant key man risk. Well, everyone has key man risk until they're at about 5 million in revenue. So don't worry about it until you're at that level and focus on getting to that level first. And this is really something I need to become much better at, is not even thinking about this kind of topic. And this is very closely related to the next point. Action beats conceptual understanding all the time. There was a point during the workshop when things got a bit theoretical and brainy, where the team, the acquisition.com team, ask the participants to do a little bit of math on their business fundamentals. What's your EBITDA? What's your customer lifetime gross profit, LTGP? And what's your LTV to CAC ratio, right? And I'm very comfortable with these ideas. And I noticed it in my immediate vicinity, how people were struggling with this. And for this brief moment, I enjoyed this feeling of superiority. I was like, lean back and like thinking, oh God, you guys don't get this? And I was like thinking in a quite an arrogant way, like, how is this difficult to understand? And then it hit me that most of the people around me had businesses that were bigger than mine. They were twice the size, 5 times the size, some even 20 times the size of my business. And I was in the bottom, maybe not 10%, but maybe 25% of the participants in terms of business size. And here I am feeling smug about me being conceptually superior against people who have built much bigger businesses than me. How stupid is that? And this is the world that I come from. I was brought up in a relatively intellectual household and I have an MBA. So it's a bit of a lifelong bias that I constantly have that I need to overcome. A doer with an average IQ, armed with purpose and consistency, will run circles around a Mensa member who just theorizes but barely takes action, right? So I've become much more disdainful of, smug intellectuals and really admiring of people of, average IQ, but who take action, because it's clearly those who will be successful and the first ones won't. And so instead of feeling in any way proud of my supposed intellectual superiority, I need to reflexively see it as more of a liability than an asset. And I constantly need to remind myself that I need more brawn than brains, more action, less analysis to reach my goals. Number 9, be very jealous with your time. Now, in the past, Alex and Leila used to do photo ops with all the participants. They don't do them anymore. Now, the team also mentioned that Alex doesn't do any book signings because it's a low leverage activity for him. In our case, he made an exception this time. We all got signed books. And also, I expected that I could ask Alex several questions. And that was not possible either. Now, he came in for two-hour sessions, but those sessions were very carefully choreographed and scripted, and there was no real room for ad hoc questions. I totally get it, and I don't really resent him for doing it this way, but the takeaway from it was this. Alex is one of the best examples of what is possible when you combine strong focus on the constraints of your business with an incredibly strong work ethic. He made it from 0 to 9-figure net worth in the span of 10 years. And his lack of availability for these relatively low leverage activities like doing photo ops and ad hoc questions is a clear outflow of that. Now, for better or worse, they have decided that someone who pays 5K for a 2-day workshop is not enough to warrant more of his time. So it's very Darwinian and, kind of cruel, but it's absolutely fair. The lesson for me is clear. Identify low leverage activities that you currently engage in and stop them. For me, for example, it's reactivity in my messaging. I'm currently far too reactive and available on messaging, on email, etc. And I just allow emails and Slack to disrupt my working hours. So this is something that I need to overcome. Be very jealous of your time. Number 10, develop empathy with people who give you the BS excuses on a sales call. And that's a big one for me because I tend to be quite a judgmental type. In reality, when people are giving you a BS excuse, they are just scared. The best thing you can do is to say, tell me, John, what are you concerned might happen? And even if they keep BSing you and are dishonest, be empathetic. Ed, one of Alex's team members, called it unreasonable empathy and unreasonable optimism. That's what a good salesperson needs. And this is such an important concept for me that I have taped it now on my wall, unreasonable optimism and empathy, because it goes counter to my natural tendencies. Number 11, coaching businesses need a hard pivot to be sellable. Alex casually dropped a line to one of the question askers. He asked, so you do coaching, you know that there will be no exit there, right? Meaning that they won't be able to sell the company. And it's just accepted wisdom at the acquisition.com offices that a coaching business doesn't sell. And that doesn't mean that they won't invest into these kind of businesses, but what they do with them is they force what they call a hard pivot. Either you have to create a proper upsell path from package 1 to package 5 so that the average customer lifetime value becomes far higher than average, or you move towards a so-called roll-up model where you buy up companies in your space and can achieve significant economies of scale. So that was something worth considering, but true to my earlier point, don't bother about topics that will be only relevant 2 years from now. I'm not going to dwell on it. And finally, point 12, a minor point, but one that stuck with me. People refer others for status. People, customers, clients will give you a shout out and a case study and testimonial before they will refer you to their friends. Why? Because people refer others for status. Have you noticed this, that sometimes clients will give you a public shout out, but you don't get any referrals from them, right? You were possibly good enough for them to give you a testimonial, but you weren't good enough that they will refer you to their friends. So referrals is actually the thing to aspire towards rather than just testimonial. And I know this is ironic because most of our taglines is don't depend on referrals. And I, of course, stand by this. You shouldn't depend on them, but you should still strive towards them because, of course, that's the best thing to have. If somebody comes to you and say, hey, you worked with this person and I'm their friend, I'm totally going to work with you. Of course, it's perfect, but you don't want to depend on it. And so this phenomenon of people give you public shout outs before they refer their friends, that's similar to the well-known phenomenon that people will give medicine to their pets on time, but they won't stay on schedule with their own medicine. So those are my main takeaways. Effectively, stick with what works, use outreach to get to multiple 7 figures, be strongly biased towards action, stop all the long-term strategic rumination, right? This will be the dominant theme for the next 2 years, or as long as it will take to reach 3 million in yearly revenue. Now, let us go through the pros and cons of attending the acquisition.com scaling workshop. Should you go as well? Well, first of all, let's go to the pros. It's an obvious one, but the biggest pro: get around really smart people. It will raise your standards. I was one of the smallest fish in the room and it felt quite humbling. You get treated differently. Not only that, we were placed in different groups by size, and then the acquisition.com team members, they go around and talk to you. You can ask them questions. Like, we got seated at the relatively crappiest area. We were like the smallest ones. It was sort of in the hallway. And then people came to us, whereas the biggest people were placed in their nice, proper conference room. So that I found that quite funny. And when you are that small, your words don't really carry much weight, as they shouldn't, right? Which is inspiring because it's really a meritocracy. You know that once you get to the next level, it will be different. Now, it's super interesting because we have some clients, who are very early stages and they very much listen. They're very deferential. They listen to what I have to say. Okay, yeah, we're at 600K a year. And so that means that we know a few things that they don't. And then when I'm there, I'm the little guy who's making 600K a year. And I'm like kind of listening to what the $3 million person is saying, right? It's super interesting. And it's just a testimony to the fact that we're all trying to climb the mountain, and the people who are ahead of us have something more to share. Also, there's I call it the Cole Gordon attitude of, well, obviously getting to 100K a month is kind of basic, right? Then having that kind of attitude around you is super useful. This guy on Alex's team called Ed, who just smiled knowingly when I asked him, like, really, I couldn't believe it, whether it's really possible to reach 1 million a month from outreach. And he was like, yes, of course it's possible. Right? And having this kind of attitude is really, really good. It's like being in a room full of guys with a 6-pack and you are forced to walk around topless, right? You will lose those love handles in no time. Like, you will not be able to stand yourself if everybody around you has a 6-pack and you have these like flabs on the side. It just won't happen. The pro number 2 is the simplicity of their VAM framework, so value acceleration method. It's such a well thought out edifice. Like, it's simple and elegant with so much under the hood. And I'm not sharing much of it publicly because I do believe that there's a certain amount of proprietary info that I have not seen it publicly in Alex's video, so I don't want to share it necessarily. And the framework is useful when you're at 100K a year and when you're at 10 million a year. So as far as the robustness of their method and framework is concerned, like, top marks. Pro 3 is how awe-inspiring it is to see their whole funnel in action. It's like being a small local film studio and then seeing a Hollywood production up close and from within. Their funnel is super impressive, and here's effectively how it works. So Acquisition.com is effectively a private equity firm, and they invest in small and mid-sized businesses, and they double or 10x them in size, and then they either hold and collect dividends or sell them. That is the heart of their operation. And everything that we saw was a step in the funnel towards that, right? We are part of their deal flow. It's them cultivating the next generation of future portfolio companies. Alex and Leila have a very strong content presence on all the social channels, and they attract a lot of attention from small businesses. Now, 99% of their audience get support for free through the content that they publish, through the books, especially that Alex has written. And all this content creates a ton of goodwill. Then the next step in the funnel is getting people into this 5K workshop, right? So I've been now watching Alex's content for 3 to 4 years, and now finally they got me to pay them 5K to go to their workshop. So that one workshop is about 500K in revenue for them, about 100 participants there. And during this workshop, they then pitch the next level thing, which they charged 35K for. It looked like about half of the workshop attendants bought it. So that's another almost 2 million in revenue from that one workshop. And these two steps then obviously serve the purpose of separating the wheat from the chaff and help the team filter out the best possible investment targets for them. So the model is brilliant. Make people pay for growing their business and then observe who executes the best, and they are then possible candidates for investment. And I, of course, don't know their cost structure, but it's pretty certain that these two monetization instances, 5K thing and the 35K thing, are very profitable, and that's all before the main moneymaker for them, which is, of course, investing. But just being able to seeing this up close and getting a glimpse into the inside workings is super interesting and definitely worth the trip. And the final pro for me is number 4, that authority breeds certainty. One of the biggest challenges I have, and as many people have, I'm sure, is that you don't really know what to focus on next. There's too many hours in the day, and there's not enough time to do everything you want to do. And so when someone comes who has seen a lot of companies in my space and has a vested interest in making you successful, because I could be their next investment target, right? Absolutely. So they have a vested interest in making me successful. I'm really going to listen. And it really helps to get that clarity dialed in. The uncertainty is gone now. I know what to do, and I'm never going to be like hopefully in the next 2 years, I'm never going to be questioning what to do next. Okay, now let's get to the downsides. First of all, downside number 1, the travel and associated hassle. Now, if I think of it from first principles, if I could have had 1 to 2 people on Alex's team to talk to me for 1 hour over Zoom and get a 2 to 4 hour recording of the value acceleration method, I believe that I could have gotten the same value as I got from attending the workshop. And I would have saved myself about 10K of travel costs because we took the whole family, and about 2 days on either side of travel prep and recovery after a 14-hour red-eye flight with small children. So it's a very, very inefficient way to learn, especially when you already have a good growth hypothesis and you just want to have it confirmed, right? So if you're around Vegas and you can get there with a short flight or a short drive, then it's not a problem. But for us, it was quite a hassle. And I do think that if I offered the team 5K for one of Alex's lieutenants to talk to me for an hour, I think one of them might have taken the call. So just purely from a first principle standpoint, where could I have gotten the same value from a couple of hours of focused attention for me? I'm pretty sure I could have. However, the fact is that I wouldn't have known who to talk to. And so overall, it's a good thing that I went. The travel still sucks. And I don't know if I'm uniquely inept at this, but I find that traveling disrupts me more than other people. And that's because I love it. I visited some 50 plus countries in my 20s and 30s, and I get totally absorbed by new places. I want to learn about local history, geography, everything, which of course is a total distraction, given that my only priorities are now family and business. And any transatlantic flight usually reduces my productivity by 80% for 2 days afterwards. On a recent podcast with Alex, the host casually dropped the line, "I know you refuse to travel," which seems to confirm that Alex has similar priorities, right? Travel is a huge disruption. Now, downside number 2, you have to take notes frantically. They don't allow any recording, and you cannot take pictures of slides being presented. So you're constantly scrambling to keep up. And I understand why they're doing this. First, they have some proprietary info there and want to avoid it leaking because otherwise they could possibly lose sales. But still, it's a big downside because you just cannot absorb that much information properly without hearing it again. There was especially one presentation that was just so valuable. And at some point, I just threw my hands in the air and gave up scribbling along. And I hoped that I would retain something just by listening, but for me, it just doesn't work. I learned through repetition, and there had been so much great content at that point that my brain just felt completely filled up and I couldn't add anything more. Now, the acquisition.com team will say that, oh, that's okay. You will take away what you need and action 1 to 3 things from the event only. And that may be true, but I still think that this could have been done better. At least allow me through repetition to choose which 1 to 3 things I will prioritize and what are secondary points that I will also keep in my field of vision. I would have preferred that. Downside number 3, the event is one big exercise in survival of the fittest. Now imagine a room of 100 alpha types and about 10 people on Alex's team. And these 100 alphas constantly try to get the attention of the 10 to ask them questions. That's what you're there to do, and it's pretty hard. Overall, if I actually measured the amount of time that I got one of Alex's team to give me personalized advice, one-to-one, it probably would be about 15 minutes in 2 days' time, 30 minutes at most, which of course makes me think, like, how much time and money could I have saved if I had just paid 5 or even 10 grand to get some of the acquisition.com team members and on a call and give me personalized advice for 1 to 2 hours. Right? It was just a lot of scrambling, right? There's a coffee break and you just see this one guy who's walking and you just pounce on him before like 7 other people come and just surround him and ask him questions. And you get like, you really have to even pay attention to the words you're going to say just so that it's very concise. And it's like 2 days of that. And final downside number 4, no actual interaction with Alex and Layla. Layla wasn't there at all. And Alex was there for these 2, pitches or 2 presentations. One had a Q&A, but the Q&A was curated. And you might have seen videos of Alex answering questions from the crowd and Alex and Layla taking pictures with workshop attendees. The way it was at my event is that the questions to Alex were very curated. As the team got to know all the participants during the 2 days, they handed out question cards to the most interesting questions with the widest applicability to other participants. And those people then got to ask Alex questions. Totally understandable, get it. And I wouldn't have done it any other way. But of course, it's still a bit of a bummer because I didn't get to ask Alex a question. And the reason they don't take pictures with the participants anymore is because some idiots used their picture with Alex to claim that he had invested in them. And also they are protecting Alex's time. So totally understandable. And I would do it just the same. So it's not really, the downsides are not real downsides, it's more inconveniences. Overall, it was a ton of value and their upsell is something to aspire towards. I chose not to invest into their 35K upsell at this point, maybe mainly because I now have to over-index on action and less on advice. The advice to me is very straightforward and I just need to execute now. My recommendation, absolutely consider participating in one of their scaling workshops if you are facing an impasse in your business and you don't quite know what to do next. If you know exactly what to do, then don't go, just execute. But only do it if you're serious about your business and you want to grow it to at least 7 figures. If you're at like whatever, 10K a month and you want to grow to 20K and then stop, then this would be a total waste of money. Like this is really like, it was like an elite group of entrepreneurs, all of whom want to get to multiple 7, even 8 figures. All right. So if you just want to add a couple of clients here and there and then live a comfortable life, then that would not be the right decision for you. Final point, one that I found very funny. Alex opened his remarks on the second day by saying that, oh, so you probably now all realized, or many of you realized, that your business isn't worth anything. And everybody was like groaning at this and saying, yeah, we totally get it. And he said, but I'm going to give you one positive thing. It is not worth anything to anyone but you, but it is worth something to you. Because it feeds you, feeds your family, puts food on the table, and it allows you to live the life you're currently living. So it is valuable, it's just not valuable to anybody else. And everybody laughed at that. And of course, it was a good moment where people realize that they have a lot of work ahead of them, but also it allows you to be at least somewhat proud of what you've built so far.